All right, I'm super pumped to talk about this today because we're going to be talking about the #1 factor that can tell us how successful you'll be in getting your ex back. Now, I want to assure you that I just didn't make this up to sound clickbaity and get you to click on this video, because we've actually done a lot of research on this in the past year. I don't know if you've noticed, but ever so subtly I've been drip feeding success story interviews of people who've come through our program and actually succeeded in getting their exes back. And we're doing this not only to help us understand what they're doing that is successful in getting their exes back, but we're also trying to learn about how to advise people specifically to prevent making the mistakes that will make them fail to get their exes back. And we found some really fascinating things, but one thing in particular is more important than anything else. And I must confess that I actually do have an ulterior motive for making this video. You see, a few days ago, I was scrolling on my phone and happened to go to the Yahoo homepage. And on there, I found an article about dating websites, not specifically like Match.com or Tinder or things like that, but websites actually like mine, people who are just trying to give dating advice. And this person, specifically talking about breakup dating advice, was really killing the no contact rule, saying things like, "This doesn't work, it's manipulative, why would you want to manipulate someone to get back with their ex?" And they're kind of right and kind of wrong. So here's where they're right. A lot of times with the no contact rule, people are only focusing on the fact that it will help make their ex miss them. So by ignoring their ex, they're trying to get this elicited reaction that will sort of make them realize, oh my gosh, what have I done, and come back. In a weird way, it is like manipulation, but what we have found is if you do the no contact rule with that type of an intent, it almost always fails. So a lot of times me and a lot of my peers point this out. They say you should not be focusing on the no contact rule to get your ex back. You should be focusing on other things. So that specific article kind of missed that point. But it brings up kind of another interesting point, because we have found that the #1 way that we can determine your success in getting an ex back is by focusing in on what you're doing with your time during the no contact rule. Yep, that's right. When we actually looked at our success stories, what we've learned from each and every one of them was that they used the no contact rule in an effort to better themselves and not get their ex back. We've actually honed in more on understanding exactly how they're using their no contact rule, and we found that it's actually helping them shift their attachment style from more anxious tendencies to more secure tendencies. So what does that mean? What do I mean by shifting anxious to secure? Well, a lot of times we find that most of our clients tend to have anxious type of attachment styles, meaning they're the types that will blow up their ex's phone after a breakup, beg for their ex back. They'll put their entire identity into the relationship so it feels like they've lost everything if they lose their ex. And it's really difficult for them during a no contact rule, especially to ignore their ex. So what are the successful people doing? Well, they're identifying their anxious tendencies and working on them so that they appear more secure, so that they have the fortitude to overcome any relationship problem they have in the future. In other words, they're outgrowing their ex during their no contact rule. So how do you shift anxious tendencies into more secure ones? Well, there's a lot of different advice out there with regards to shifting your attachment style from anxious to secure, or from avoidant to secure, or from fearful to secure. But not all of the advice out there we have found works in breakup situations. So here's the way that you should be outgrowing your ex during your no contact period. The first thing is you should be using others to help regulate your emotions. Now, luckily, a lot of the people who I interviewed have purchased our ex recovery program. Now, I'm not plugging it. You don't need to buy it if you don't want to, but here's one of the cool things about it. It gives you direct access to a community of over 6,000 or almost 6,000 people who are also going through breakups as well. So imagine this. Imagine you're going through a breakup and you talk to your friends. And this is a really underrated fact. In fact, look at some of the YouTube comments that point this fact out. You talk to your friends and mention to them that you may want to be trying to get your ex back. And they're supportive a little at first, or they give you the patented, "Why would you want an ex back? That's ridiculous. You should just work on moving on." And they're not supportive at all. They don't listen to the struggles that you're having or anything like that. So you go to another friend or a family member and they just repeat the same type of behavior and you feel you can't get any help. Well, that's actually kind of one of the reasons we created our private Facebook group, to help you regulate some of these emotional problems that you're having after a breakup that are just completely normal. So you're going through a problem, right? And you decide, hey, I'm gonna reach out to my ex. I can't take this no contact rule anymore. I'm just gonna reach out. Instead of doing that, you first check with the Facebook group, or you come to the Facebook group and make a post of saying like, I am having so much trouble. Can you guys just talk to me and tell me if I'm doing the right thing or if I'm seeing the right results? And you'll get people giving you feedback, and it helps you kind of regulate some of those emotions, because usually when you're just doing this alone, you have nowhere or no one to talk to about it. Another interesting thing we've learned about people who are successfully changing their anxious style to more of secure styles is they recognize when they're having speech patterns that are more about themselves as opposed to us. Stop me if you've heard this before, but let's say that you're in a relationship, and I don't know how to say this without sounding bad, but I've been on dates or relationships where I've literally been sitting there while the other person just continually talks about themselves. And they don't really care about me. They just talk about themselves constantly. They do care. I know they do, because when I do speak up and tell them a little bit about myself, they are listening, but they're a lot more interested in talking about themselves. So one of the things we're learning from people who are succeeding in getting their exes back is they're able to identify when this happens and try to shift conversation more into a we instead of a me type of a speech pattern. So learning to catch yourself or be self-aware of moments like this when you're talking to your ex when the time comes is important to do. Another really important thing is people are willing to let go of relationships that just aren't worth it anymore. This is something that I have been very fortunate about in my life, and that's basically just identifying relationships that I don't feel are productive for me or aren't doing much for me, and just ending things. And it's not that I'm trying to be mean, or it's not that that person isn't adding some type of value to my life. It's just that I just don't either have time, or it's just becoming more of a them instead of an us type of a mechanism. But I think the problem is people who are anxious attachment styles value their relationships with other people so much that it's really hard for them to let go, especially when they don't recognize that relationships are toxic. This can be friends, this can even be very close friends, or even the ex, because sometimes perspective is what is needed to understand whether or not this ex was an extremely toxic individual throughout your time together. And probably the most important thing people are doing is working on their confidence so that they have the fortitude to deal with anything. One of the hallmarks of someone who is extremely anxious is they almost feel like it's the end of the world when things with their relationship just don't seem to be going that well. This is especially true during breakups. When you go through a breakup, they literally feel like the world is ending. They can't imagine themselves with anyone else. And trying to work on that person's internal confidence to have the fortitude to be like, you know what, if I don't get them back, that's okay, is the most important step that they can take during a no contact rule. Because think of it like this: if you interact with your ex after a no contact rule where you're still thinking, if I don't get this person back, it's the end of the world, you're probably not going to do really well, because number one, your ex will just innately sense that, but also things will not go perfectly. I'm going to tell you that right out the bat. Even in situations where things seemingly go perfect, there are often huge speed bumps along the road that people have to adapt to. Inverse that with the mentality of going through a no contact rule, literally feeling like I want this person back, but you know what? I'll be okay if I don't get them back. I'm just going to give it my best shot, and whatever happens, happens. Having that mentality when they talk to an ex is the most important point of the no contact rule. And it's the number one thing we've noticed that is almost like a streamline throughout every single success story that we've interviewed. Every single one of them used their time during no contact to focus on themselves and get to that attitude. And if you're not at that attitude, in my mind, you should not be talking to your ex after the no contact. It means you've essentially wasted your time during no contact to gain perspective. Of course, one of the number one things that you should always do is figure out what kind of chance you naturally have of getting your ex back. And luckily for you, on our website, www.exboyfriendrecovery.com, we've put together a special quiz that's basically designed to do just that for you. So if you're interested in taking that quiz, just simply look in the description below this YouTube video and click the link you see there. It will take you directly to the quiz where you can fill it out and get an answer right here, right now. Also, if you haven't liked, commented, or subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. Every little bit helps. I'll see you guys next time.